You're watching ABC10 Plus This Week.
Hello, I'm Jenny Huh, and you're watching ABC 10 This Week. Thousands of homeowners will be able to save money after FEMA dropped their homes from flood maps. What led to the changes? And in dollars and cents, Verizon customers could soon be getting some money back. But now there's a warning: scammers could try to take it from you. And millions tuned in to watch the Super Bowl 60 halftime show. We speak with a local pastor who officiated a wedding in the middle of it.
Well, tonight, after keeping it secret from his congregation for nearly a month, we are hearing from the South Sacramento pastor who officiated the surprise wedding at Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show in Santa Clara.
Pastor Antonio Reyes says it was an honor and a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be part of what he calls history in the making. ABC 10's Roxanne Elias joins us in studio after sitting down with the pastor himself.
And Roxanne, what did you learn about it?
Well, Chris and Laura, the pastor says he spent the first 18 years of his life growing up in Mexico before moving to the U.S. at 19. He's been in ministry for more than a decade, and he says stepping onto that stage, it was very emotional for him, knowing he was representing the Latino community.
I'm still trying to make sense of what just happened.
It was a surreal moment for Pastor Antonio Reyes, who officiated a real wedding on the field during Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show. In front of 70,000 football fans at Levi Stadium, he took the stage as the artist performed Baile Inolvidable.
As soon as I stepped into the stadium, I was very emotional. And not just because of the stadium, but to me, it was because of the moment, what it represented to our Latino community. And so as soon as I stepped into the stadium, I felt it, and I wanted to cry, and I was like, just keep it together.
Reyes is the campus pastor at Project Church in South Sacramento. And through a friend who's a singer, he says he received the call almost 4 weeks ago asking if he'd be willing to do a wedding ceremony in Spanish for a couple. At the time, he says he didn't know who the couple would be, but was told it might be a celebrity. It wasn't until his wife was helping sign the paperwork that they realized the details of the once-in-a-lifetime ceremony.
And when she shows up, she starts reading, she starts screaming and yelling, in the kitchen. And that's when we find out that it was for the halftime show.
Reyes says the experience has given him a bigger appreciation for the dancers and producers of the show, after spending countless hours in rehearsals for about a week before. He says what stood out to him during the show was two main things: unity and a goal to make people feel seen through performance.
That was very clear that his desires was to communicate unity, that this country is made by all of us. It doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, we all made this country.
He says as people live in complicated moments with hopelessness and despair, his message is for people to refuse to live in hopelessness.
Personally, I believe that there's a bigger story being told by the story of Jesus, and I want people to know that we don't have to be subjects of what is being told in culture, that our political parties do not have to have a say into how we feel and what we lean into.
Reyes says he met the couple about 3 weeks ago before the big day. He says they keep in touch and are practically like family now. He says the couple is from Southern California, and when they are ready, they will share more about this big special moment for them. Chris, Laura.
Roxanne Elias, we thank you for that update.
In Your State Matters, today Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law a bill aimed at protecting veterans as they access federal benefits.
SB 694 sparked loud debate as it made its way through the Capitol, and there were even strong calls for a veto leading up to the governor's signature.
ABC 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny Huh explains both sides.
It was a bill that caused a lot of debate. Introduced in the Senate, went to the Assembly, was amended, had to go back to the Senate, and wasn't taken up on the floor again until late January. Then it was signed into law Tuesday for it to take effect January 2027.
California will not tolerate claim sharks that target and exploit our veterans and their families.
SB 694, known as the Veteran Benefits Protection Act, will mandate federal accreditation for private assistance companies veterans often seek when claiming benefits. It will also prevent any unauthorized fees for those services.
Veterans don't know that they fall prey to unaccredited companies who are charging outrageous fees, something that's already prohibited by federal law.
Governor Newsom and the bill authors say the so-called claim sharks are part of a $73 billion a year industry.
That is $73 billion of taxpayer dollars that is going into the pockets of corporations instead of the pockets of veterans.
Advocates are pushing veterans to instead use free accredited local county veteran service officers, but that's where the debate is. Critics say veterans seek private assistance out of necessity due to backlogs and delays in traditional veterans programs. Republican Assemblymember Jeff Gonzalez, the only veteran in the assembly, was a co-author of the bill but wanted his name taken off following major amendments. That didn't happen.
I don't add names or remove names from bills. That's the purview of the legislature. And I'll just say this, I'm proud to sign this bill. It's the right thing to do.
Before it became a broader bill tackling so-called claim sharks and fraud on veterans benefits, SB 694 focused narrowly on how well veteran service providers and a grant program were working. Gonzalez says, quote, "The only path forward I could make for veterans was to give them a choice." Advocates acknowledged it was an uphill battle.
Everyone had a shot at this. The good, the bad, the ugly. And guess what? The good prevailed because veterans need to be protected.
But say they remain firm by this soon-to-be law.
It wasn't, and it isn't, an exaggeration to say even this morning, folks were still working to make sure that I didn't go to the left here and sign this bill.
Jenny Huh, ABC 10.
In tonight's Dollars and Cents, if you're expecting a $20 refund from Verizon after last month's massive outage, watch out for scammers. They're trying to steal your personal information. I talk with a former FBI agent and cybersecurity expert about what to look out for and how to protect yourself.
The Verizon outage was a glitch.
Verizon suffered a 10-hour outage to cell phone service January 14th, stopping some users from making calls or sending texts for much of the day.
We lost phones, including myself and my family, and it caused chaos.
After the outage was resolved, Verizon told customers they could get $20 off their next bill as an apology for the issue.
And it was published on X, it was being shared around, it was made very broadly available through social media. And so people were waiting for the $20. And what Verizon did, which from a cybersecurity perspective I don't quite agree with, is they sent texts to people.
Former FBI agent, cybersecurity expert, and author Eric O'Neill tells me scammers are now trying to cash in.
What cyber criminals immediately did is piggyback off of what Verizon was doing, sent their own fake malicious links out to anyone that they had on a list of phone numbers.
O'Neill says watch out for text-based scams called smishing attacks. He says cyber criminals have really leaned into these kind of scams because people tend to be more trusting of texts, which can also include direct messages from social media.
Well, how can we protect ourselves?
Well, what I always say is think like a spy hunter. So what you need to do is never click an unsolicited link, even if you're expecting, and that's why this was such a nefarious scam.
O'Neill warns to watch out for texts claiming to be from Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile as well.
Will those companies be asking them this sort of credit card information, logging in? Is that also a red flag if they're being asked this information?
Great question, Laura. No, a legitimate company is not going to ask you for your username and password. They're not going to ask you for your credit card number. They're certainly not going to ask you for your social security number and birth date to verify you are who you are.
O'Neill says there's a lot of information tied to your cell phone account. Scammers can use your social security number to hijack your phone and use your number to attack other people. O'Neill strongly urges everyone to turn on two-factor authentication to make it harder for cybercriminals to trick you into giving up your username and password.
Call their customer support, tell them what happened, tell them to freeze your account and reset your password right away. Because otherwise, that gives the cyber attacker time to change your password, control your account, and then it makes it a lot harder for you to get back in.
Here's how to legitimately get your refund from Verizon. The company says customers can redeem the credit by logging into the My Verizon app to accept. The credit will cover multiple days of service for average customers, while business customers will be contacted directly about their credits. Remember, your money questions have answers. Email me at lpainter@abc10.com and stream all of our dollars and cents coverage right now on the free ABC10 app.
New information tonight on a story we first brought you last night about a state lawmaker who wants to ban alcohol sales to anyone convicted of a serious or repeat DUI. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Becca Habiger. We spoke with that lawmaker today about the specifics of the bill and heard from people personally impacted by drunk driving.
Our son, Braun, was never given a second chance.
Jennifer Levy's 18-year-old son, Braun Levy, was hit and killed last May by a suspected drunk driver.
I will never forget when my husband and I had to identify our son's body. It is seared into my memory.
The woman charged with a DUI in the death of Levy's son had been previously charged with a DUI in 2023. Her license was suspended as a result.
California DUI laws are weak, they're broken, and they are dangerously amendable.
That's one reason why Assemblymember Rhodesia Ransom wants stricter penalties in place. Another reason is personal.
I actually have a friend who lost a child in a drunk driving accident, and that was that person's third time of being caught drunk driving. This time they actually killed a person. And we've seen over and over again that most drunk drivers don't just do it once and learn their lesson.
Her bill, AB1005, would allow judges to place a no alcohol sale notice directly on the driver's license or real ID of someone convicted of a severe DUI offense. That would include someone at twice the legal blood alcohol content limit, a driver with 2 DUIs within 3 years, or a DUI causing a serious injury, death, or major property damage.
We already have restrictions on licenses, and people are going around that and illegally driving. So we need to close the loop by making sure they can't access alcohol as easily as they can right now.
The bill is based on a similar law recently enacted in Utah. Ransom's bill would require an alcohol sale ban for at least 6 months at the discretion of the judge.
At least 6 months cooling off period if someone has been drunk driving, that we want to give them the opportunity to not only reflect but to dry out, before they buy another drink.
The ban would apply to all restaurants, bars, and retail outlets in California with mandatory ID checks. But would this enforcement fall on the shoulders of restaurant servers, bartenders, and store clerks? Already, those workers have to ensure they're not serving alcohol to minors or over-serving customers. We asked the California Restaurant Association, which didn't have anyone available for an interview, but said in an email, "We are currently reviewing the bill and evaluating its potential impacts and liability risks for restaurants, servers, and bartenders." We also reached out to the California DMV and Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control about how this bill might be enforced. Both said they don't comment on pending legislation.
Protecting innocent lives must come before protecting offenders.
Meanwhile, Levy will continue fighting in memory of her son so that other parents don't find themselves in her position.
Assemblymember Ransom says state data from 2021 shows of the more than 110,000 DUI arrests that year, about a quarter of convicted offenders had at least one prior DUI conviction. Now, her bill joins a whole package of DUI-related bills this session that state lawmakers are introducing. Many aim to strengthen punishment for repeat offenders. On top of trying to figure out how to address a nearly $3 billion budget shortfall, California lawmakers are also trying to navigate any impacts to the state from President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Becca Habiger. As ABC10's Jeannie Nguyen found out, many residents who receive benefits from Medi-Cal or CalFresh are pleading with the legislature to help fill the gap.
Becca, the Senate Budget and Fiscal Review Committee met for more than 4 hours today to hear from advocates and constituents on how the Big Beautiful Bill could pull back resources. Even though no decision was made today, the California Association for Food Banks tells me they're bracing for billions of dollars worth of cuts.
It's $2 to $4 billion we're talking about. So we need the state to get creative, but really prioritize food first because that's the most fundamental basic need.
Jared Call with the California Association of Food Banks says food banks will be feeling some of the largest cuts in funding due to H.R. 1, also known as President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. He's calling on the legislature to come up with solutions to help fill the gap.
It has enacted the largest cuts to the CalFresh program, known federally as SNAP, in the program's history, and we anticipate hundreds of thousands of California families being impacted by those cuts.
Call says people will start losing benefits starting in the next few months.
About 72,000 people who will lose eligibility for CalFresh beginning April 1st. In June, we'll start seeing people cut off due to really harsh time limits where they can only receive 3 months of vital food assistance in a 3-year period unless they meet really strict work requirements.
On top of food impacts, Medi-Cal recipients could face cuts as well.
In the 35 rural counties served by CMSP, over 124,000 Medi-Cal beneficiaries could lose their health care coverage.
Democratic Senator John Laird criticized H.R. 1, encouraging lawmakers to find ways to ensure coverage doesn't lapse for Californians.
There was a $2.5 trillion tax break for the top 10% earners in the United States so that we could run up more trillions in deficit and throw millions of people off health care and food assistance.
With the state facing a budget deficit in the billions, Republican Senator Roger Nilo believes there's not enough money to cover all the potential cuts, and there are other options to temporarily fill the gaps.
Food banks double down on their private sector donation recruitment, and I think there's a strong chance that they could get that. Not that that's going to make up the whole gap, but it can make a difference.
Again, no budget decision was made during this hearing. The governor is expected to present his revised budget in May. Becca.
Jeannie, thank you.
Well, new tonight, thousands of homeowners in Stockton can finally start seeing the savings from a flood control project that has been in the works for years.
Yeah, a zone where flood insurance was required since 2009 is now in the clear. ABC 10's Gabriel Porras has the details tonight.
For almost 16 years along Stockton's Smith Canal, frustration for homeowners has been rising.
It's been ridiculous.
Because while the water has stayed confined to the canal, rates on FEMA-required flood insurance for 8,000 homeowners like Bob Stewart only rose.
I started out at $200, I ended up at $1,300 last year. I was paying $1,000 a year for flood insurance. It was ridiculous. FEMA put us into a flood zone.
But now?
So I'm happy they did what they did.
And this is what they did. A floodgate at the mouth of the Smith Canal, allowing the San Joaquin Area Flood Control Agency to open or close flow from the San Joaquin River into the canal. Executive Director Darren Swen tells me the construction ended in 2024, but just this week,
FEMA just approved the letter of map revision, taking out approximately 8,000 properties of the special flood hazard area, meaning that residents in that area will no longer be mandatory to pay flood insurance. But it can be up to $3,000 a year.
Yeah, that would be nice not have to pay the flood insurance.
While homeowners will no longer have to pay thousands of dollars for insurance each year, they will still be on the hook for an assessment fee. That's for maintenance and repairs of the floodgate. But officials say that fee is much smaller.
It's included in our taxes.
Okay. A smaller fee and a lot more peace of mind, turning frustration into gratitude.
They got it done and they did a good job.
In Stockton, Gabriel Porras, ABC 10.
According to officials, that ongoing assessment fee is about $100 to $200 a year for most. The floodgate was used for the first time to prevent flooding just a few weeks ago.
Every day, people pass by the Sacramento Historic Cemetery without giving it much thought.
This cemetery is about 32, 33 acres.
And within those acres are the lives of people who helped shape Sacramento. Stories many of us didn't even know were here.
These people were pioneers. They made contributions in a number of different ways, depending on what community they were in.
This cemetery isn't like most historic cemeteries from the 1800s. It wasn't segregated. It was open to all. The poor, the rich, white, and black.
How many African American families are here?
Well, there's about 10 or 12 family plots in here, and most of them are full.
Eric Bradner is with the Old City Cemetery Committee, and every February they hold the African American History Tour that highlights the influential black people of Sacramento's past. People like opera singer Anna Maida Fletcher.
This is a picture from Erlina, the African Princess, which is the first play written by African Americans, performed by African Americans, set in Africa.
Born in 1855, died in 1925, Anna toured the nation performing and breaking down racial barriers.
They put on the first version of Uncle Tom's Cabin that had a mixed cast of white and black members.
From its beginning, California was a melting pot. The gold rush of 1849 brought in people from all over the world, including slaves, who were often not told they were in a free state.
Isaiah Dunlap.
Barber Isaiah Dunlap was part of a society known as the Colored Convention Movement, which used a network of people to free slaves.
A direct action committee that would go out and try and free slaves or move them to another place or let them know their rights.
Many black Sacramentans were trailblazers who got little recognition or were lost to history altogether.
Ernest Johnson died February 17th, 1898.
At a time when black Americans were barred from many schools, Ernest Johnson, with the support of his father, became the first African American to graduate from Stanford University.
Nobody at Stanford seems to have known about it or made a big deal of it at the time.
It wasn't until decades after his graduation that researchers rediscovered Ernest Johnson. Today, there's a scholarship in his name. Every day, people pass by the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery without giving it much thought. But maybe they should.
History is important because it's important for people to know that people did not just give in to their fate. They didn't roll over. They fought for their rights.
Taking the African American History Tour at Sacramento's Historic City Cemetery, I'm John Bartel.
From neighbors helping neighbors to inspiring acts of kindness, each week we bring you a champion of hope. Tonight we introduce you to a boy overcoming severe burns and the team bringing him some hope and joy at Shriners Children's Northern California.
What's this guy doing back here?
11-year-old Gideon loves playing video games.
We're playing Rocket League.
This portable gaming unit, called a Gamer's Outreach Cart or Go-Kart, is built specifically for hospitals. They can be wheeled directly to the bedsides of kids and teens.
I look forward to it just because of this, because we don't have much gaming consoles at home.
Gideon is a patient at Shriners Children's Northern California getting scar release surgery. His mom tells us an accident in May of 2023 involving lighter fluid led to Gideon suffering burns on 84% of his body. These go-karts, which have some 50 games, help him pass the time. We asked how long he gets to play.
3 hours.
And that's not a rule the hospital established.
That's what my mom says.
On this day, Shriners Children's Northern California is unveiling 4 new go-karts donated by FlexCare.
It gives the relief to the kids who truly need to be kids and forget the stress of undergoing care and actually focus on what they need the most, which is healing.
Alexandra Connor with FlexCare says the Roseville-based company places traveling healthcare providers at medical facilities nationwide that are in need of extra staffing. She says the go established.
That's what my mom says.
On this day, staff who care for the kids.
When clinicians burn out, it leads to the worst thing possible. They leave the workforce, and when they leave the workforce, communities are left without the sufficient access to care.
Kids and everyone heals better when they are doing something that they enjoy.
Alex Rogers manages this hospital's therapeutic, recreation, and child life department, which integrates play with treatment and healing.
We have games and activities out that reach every developmental and every age level that we serve here.
For kids like Gideon, that means getting to play video games.
Like every time I come.
So the hospital visits feel a little more manageable on the path to healing.
No, it's not a fever dream of creepy antiques. This is the Museum of Unnatural History in Walla Walla, Washington. At first glance, Walla Walla, Washington looks like your typical rural farming community with a charming historic downtown. But if you climb the steep steps up 4.5 Main Street, you'll find a not-so-typical museum. Am I in a nightmare right now? What's going on in here?
A lot.
Museum director Daniel Forbes is not lying. There's a lot to take in at the Museum of Unnatural History.
This piece is called the last of the great superpowers. So constructed out of a vintage erector set.
The eclectic and sometimes bizarre-looking art pieces are the brainchild of the late theater actor and artist Jerry Matthews. Are some of these meant to be a little frightening?
I mean, they pleased him.
Jerry was proficient in the art style known as Dada, a movement showcasing absurdity. It became popular during the First World War and spanned across many art mediums, but in Jerry's case, it was an assemblage of found objects. A collage of antiques or trinkets?
Yeah, like a three-dimensional collage.
Jerry spent 25 years of his life filling this small showroom with thought-provoking art. Some of it politically based, some of it silly, and some of it dark. He's also kind of a fine collector of bones and rearranging them and...
I mean, all kinds of natural elements, like anything that caught his interest.
As with most art, interpretation can vary from person to person, but Jerry embraced the thought that it's just as important to discover what art you do like and the art that you don't like.
Jerry himself would often say, like, he loved it when people loved his artwork, but he always had the most interesting conversations with the people that hated it.
From the Museum of Unnatural History at Walla Walla, Washington, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back roads.
Thanks for watching ABC 10 this week. We're here 24/7 on the free ABC 10 TV streaming app. You can get your local news and weather anytime, anywhere. I'm Jenny Ha. Take care, and I'll see you next time.